season. All right, so I want to start with this story. There was once this strong man who performed in a traveling circus. You ever see these guys? I mean, he did the usual feats of strength. He ripped phone books in half. He bent bars. He pulled 18-wheelers. He was one of those guys. But one of his most famous acts involved a lemon. He'd grab a lemon, he'd hold it high for everyone to see, and then he crushed it in his hands until the juice, just flew everywhere out of this lemon. And when he was done, he'd hold out the wrung out lemon, and he'd announce to the crowd, "I'll give $200 to anyone who can squeeze one more drop out of this lemon." So one by one, these big, tough-looking guys would come up, and they would squeeze the lemon with all their might, strain, turn red in the face, but nobody ever got a drop to come out of this lemon. Until one performance, when this little old lady walked up to the stage and said, "I'll give it a try." She came up to the front, she took the lemon, she rolled up her sleeves, gave it a good squeeze, and to everyone's surprise, a drop of lemon juice came out of the lemon. And the strong man just couldn't believe it. He was shocked. In the history of his routine, he had never had anyone who could get one more drop out of the lemon. So bewildered, he handed this woman $200 and he asked, "Ma'am, what is your secret? I mean, how did you do that?" She said, "Well, I've had a lot of practice." He said, "Practice? Well, then can I ask you, what is your secret of your incredible strength?" She said, "Listen, it's not really about physical strength. I've just had a lot of practice squeezing every last drop out of things. I've been my church's treasurer for 30 years. Hi, Sue. Yeah, I'm used to squeezing every last drop out of things." Go ahead and turn your Bibles to Nehemiah. This is part 8 of our series. Just Nehemiah. I'm going to be in a few different chapters, but this is part 8 of our series, Therefore. And the message for today is called "Let the Ruins Come to Life." So last week I told you the unique story of our church, how God has been faithful to us even through the fire, literally and figuratively, through all the trials, the triumphs, everything in between. God has been faithful to us. And like Nehemiah's story, it resonates so well because Nehemiah's story is a remnant group of people who saw past the ruins to the hope of rebuilding them, not by might nor by power, but by his Spirit. And that really is the story of this place right here. But anytime ruins are rebuilt, opposition is to be expected. That's what happened in Nehemiah. Look at Nehemiah 2. We read this last week. "And they said, 'Let us rise up and build.' So they strengthened their hands for the good work. But when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite servant and Geshem the Arab heard of it, they jeered at us and despised us and said, 'What is this thing that you are doing? Are you rebelling against the king?'" So all throughout the process of rebuilding the ruins and rebuilding the wall, Nehemiah faces incredible opposition and setbacks and struggles. And as I talked about last week, so have we. Insurance negotiations and permits, codes, drawings, approvals, unforeseen delays. There has been, and I believe unfortunately will continue to be, opposition, setbacks, and distractions from the mission at hand. Because any time that there is a rebuilding project, there will be hurdles. Nothing ever comes easy. Haven't we experienced this? I mean, nothing good really ever comes easy, so why should we expect it to be? But maybe when you face the most opposition, it's because what is on the other side is going to be really, really something spectacular. So keep pushing, keep going. But because all of those oppositions, as Nehemiah says, they have no portion, right, or memorial here. And then he says, "Therefore, we will arise and build." And then it comes to Nehemiah 3. Let's look at this. Then Eliashib the high priest rose up with his brothers, the priests, and they built the sheep gate. They consecrated it and set its doors. They consecrated it as far as the Tower of the 100, as far as the Tower of Hananel. And next to him the man of Jericho built. And next to them Zachar the son of Imri built. The sons of Hassanah built the fish gate. They laid its beams and set its doors, its bolts, its bars. And next to them Meremoth the son of Uriah, son of Hakkoz, repaired. Why are these names so complicated? But anyway, those are just the first 4 verses of chapter 3 in Nehemiah, and there are 32 total verses, and the names get worse. I mean, they're just awful to pronounce. But it's a lot of repetition, really hard names to pronounce. But all these details, they make a point. Some laid beams, some set doors, some rebuilt, some repaired, but they all worked together by being faithful to their own section of the wall. That's how they rebuilt it, and that's how we ended last week's message. God has assigned each of us a part in building his kingdom. He has specifically gifted each of us for a particular job and a particular calling, which he, as the book of Ephesians says, prepared beforehand that we should walk in. God has gifted us and he's prepared us a job, a calling for our portion of the wall, so to say. And Nehemiah 3, it's this beautiful picture really of what it looks like for the church to work together to build God's kingdom. Except for verse 5. There's only one negative verse in Nehemiah 3, and it's verse 5. Let's look at it. And next to them the Tekoites repaired, but their nobles would not stoop to serve their Lord. See, whenever there's a message like this one is going to be, with a call or a challenge to do your part in building the wall, that's what this message is, okay? I'll just come out and say it. That's what the message is. Whenever there's a message like this, to encourage you to serve, to give, to step out in some way, I know how it goes. There's always a natural tendency in all of us to just start tuning out, right? We start quietly excusing ourselves. So let's go ahead and just address these excuses right away. During this message, something is going to come into your mind, and it's going to be one of these things. I'm too busy. I've already do enough. Someone else with more time, resources, or experience will handle it. This isn't really my responsibility. They're not actually expecting me to do something like that. We've all been there. And while these types of excuses may sound reasonable at first, you may even have some legitimate reasons, so you think, about some of those things. This way, here's what I want to challenge you with though. That way of thinking actually isn't all that different from the Tekoite nobles and what they said, who they would not stoop to serve their Lord. Pride isn't always about arrogance. Pride doesn't always come out in overt arrogance. Sometimes it comes out in more subtle ways, like my time, my comfort, my priorities, my lifestyle, those things come first, and I will not stoop to fill in the blank. That's not my problem. See, we're prideful, and it is prideful when we determine, well, that's beneath me. That's beneath me. See, sometimes pride doesn't overtly say, I'm better than you. Sometimes it just says, that's not my problem. That's just another form of they would not stoop to serve their Lord. Wow, it's quiet in here. Look at what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 25. But Jesus called them to him and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. It shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave, even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So how can we have this type of humble mindset and get out of all of these prideful excuses that run through our head? Well, the answer to our pride, all of the I'm too busy, someone else will handle that, that's kind of, I'm not going to take care of that, somebody will surely do that, they're not expecting me to do something like that, all that stuff. The answer to this pride that we have going on here, listen to me, it's not guilt or shame. Never. It's not guilt or shame. That's not what this message is about. We've all heard the guilt and shame stuff before. I've heard it. Do you really need more Starbucks when you could give that money to the church instead? I've heard that one. You can spend time on vacation, but you can't spend 45 minutes in the nursery every week. That's a nice new car, but you can't give another $100 to the church. Yeah. Maybe you've heard that type of stuff before, especially at intermission at Christian concerts when the Compassion International people come out. Boy, oh boy. And maybe you've even responded to this type of guilt before. But God never shames us into giving, ever. God never guilts us into doing more, trying harder, or being better, ever. So why would I? Why would we? Instead, what God does is that he stoops down and serves us himself. And when that truth finally sinks into our thick heads, when we realize that the King of Heaven stooped down by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men and being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Now that's stooping down. And when that truth finally sinks in, that is the answer to our pride. That is when we stop excusing ourselves, someone else will do it, and we start saying, here am I, Lord, send me, send me. As Tim Keller said, when you realized he sacrificed to give us life, you will start to say, how can I sacrifice to give other people life? You hear that? When you realize he sacrificed to give us life, it starts with just understanding the gospel, understanding what Jesus did for you. When you understand that, you will start to say, how can I now sacrifice to give other people life? Not out of guilt, but out of joy. Not out of shame, but out of love. And that's real service. Let's look at 2 Corinthians chapter 8. I want to just read this short passage. It's so good. And now, brothers and sisters, we want you to know about the grace of God that has been given, that God has given the Macedonian churches. In the midst of a very severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. For I testify that they gave as much as they were able, and even beyond their ability. Entirely on their own, they urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service to the Lord's people. And they exceeded our expectations. They gave themselves first of all to the Lord, and then by the will of God also to us. See, these people in the Macedonian church, they certainly could have excused themselves. I mean, certainly. But instead, their extreme poverty, it says, actually welled up in rich generosity, and they gave beyond their ability. Why? Well, because of verse 1. They had been touched and changed by the grace of God. They weren't guilted into it. They weren't shamed into it. They had been touched, leveled, humbled by the grace of God. And then look at verse 4. So much so, verse 4, look at their attitude. They urgently pleaded for I love this, the privilege of sharing in this service to the Lord's people. The privilege of doing it, the privilege of giving, the privilege of serving. Now, I've only done a few messages on giving, and I mean a few. You all know that. I've only done a few messages about giving, and frankly, I don't like to do it. I don't like it. Mainly because there's this stigma when it comes to churches and money. There just is. But I can say it shouldn't be that way. It should not be that way. I think that stigma comes because there tends to be a lack of transparency with church and money and things like that. But here, I mean this, we don't have anything to hide. So I'm simply going to tell you what our situation is and what we need and why. As I told you last week, when I became the pastor a few years ago, our finances were ugly, unstable, and uncertain. But we did a lot of work. I mean, a lot of work to sort everything out. And I want to highlight 3 of those things to you because it will be relevant for what we're going to do next. Number 1. When I became the pastor, our church had not had an independent financial review for several years. There was a lot to sort through, and frankly, it cost us a lot of money to do it, but it was worth it. We had to do it. But we now have financial reviews done by an independent, reputable accounting firm for fiscal year 22, 23, and 24. And that will continue on. Number 2, back in March 2024, which was the last giving sermon I gave, by the way. Okay, we mentioned giving, but it's the last giving message I gave, by the way, which was like a year and a half ago. But I presented you with a substantial goal and ask all the way back then to raise our monthly giving by $15,000 a month. That's what I asked. And that was to support our operational costs. Well, by the end of 2024, we had accomplished that goal. And so far in 2025, we have continued to meet that goal. That's something to celebrate. And number 3, as I discussed with you last week, we were able to make a series of financial moves that not only preserve the church from financial insolvency, but also set us up for a prosperous future. And because of those financial and organizational decisions, right now, currently, we have no debt. No debt. Now, these 3 things were vital in getting us to the point of today and even considering what I'm about to present to you. So I want to read something written by Paul David Tripp. This is so good. Waiting on God doesn't mean sitting around and hoping. Waiting means believing he will do what he's promised and then acting with confidence, or go for it. Waiting on God is not like it at all like the meaningless waiting that you do at the dentist's office. Waiting on God is an active life based on confidence in his presence and promises, not a passive existence haunted by occasional doubt. Waiting on God isn't internal torment that results in paralysis. No, waiting on God is internal rest that results in courageous action. We wait believing that what God has begun, he will complete. So we live with confidence and courage. We get up every morning and act upon what is to come. And because what is to come is sure, we know that our labor in God's name is never in vain. So we wait and act. We wait and work. We wait and fight. We wait and conquer. We wait and proclaim. We wait and run. We wait and sacrifice. We wait and give. We wait and worship. Waiting on God is an action based on confident assurance of grace to come. Isn't that so good? Now, we have waited on God in this way during this whole rebuilding process. We've waited in this way. But now, I believe it's especially time to wait and act, wait and fight, wait and conquer, and wait and give. Because of the work we've done the past few years, we have financial reviews. We can show consistent giving, and we have no debt. We are in a position where we can wait and act by seeking. We don't have one yet, but we are seeking right now a construction line of credit to charge full steam ahead with the rebuilding of the sanctuary and the lobby area. I'm tired of waiting passively. I think it's time to wait actively. I think this is the right time for us to finish the job. It's time. So why a construction line of credit? Why that? Well, as I noted last week, we're still working with our insurance adjuster and attorney to do everything we can to reach a final settlement with our insurance company, but we want this to be good. We don't want to take something we're not happy with. Okay? Because I think that's what they want us to do. But I didn't say that. But and they haven't denied payment. Okay? They've paid out $4 or $5 million so far. There hasn't been any denial of payment or anything like that. But it has been a painstakingly slow, agonizing process. We've had to repeatedly go back, renegotiate, show this. I mean, just the equipment, you can't imagine. The amount of equipment that was lost, and line by line, we've had to go back and look at this, and what about this? I mean, it's painstakingly slow and frustrating. And we've had to go back and fight for every penny because that's what we need to do. And so I want to tell you, there will be a final settlement, okay? There will be a final settlement with the insurance company, but we can't predict when that will happen. We're working on it, but we can't predict when that will happen. And if it doesn't happen within the next month or so, we won't be able to continue construction. So everything but the sanctuary, the lobby, and the cafe area is nearing completion. But if we aren't able to secure something, we won't be able to continue the construction on those other things. But the construction line of credit will allow us to begin work on the sanctuary while we're working toward a favorable insurance settlement. Make sense? Because this is a nice spot, but I'm tired of it. God called us to rebuild this place, and we're going to wait and act. So our hope and our goal is that the final settlement with the insurance company will erase any debt that we may incur through the construction line of credit through doing this, and that we will remain debt-free. That's always been the goal of this whole process. We want to have a brand new building, no debt. Talk about prosperous future. What an incredible thing that will be. That's our absolute hope. And also, we're very likely going to be having some cash coming in elsewhere. I sent an email to the members on Friday detailing a land sale, a partial land sale. We own way back in the woods a lot of acreage, and we were asked to sell some of that. And the details are in your email, but we'll prayerfully have some cash coming back from that sale. But securing that money is a few months away as well. okay? So those things are coming. Insurance settlement, coming. That, coming. We got a new thing coming. Yay, we got a new thing coming. But here's our current situation, okay? Here's our current situation. Not yet having a final settlement has put a financial strain on our operating bank account. We've had to pay some construction and content costs out of pocket to keep this all going. We've had to continue to pay our attorney, who's vital to this whole process, as we work out final settlement. There have been things we've had to pay that are really putting a strain on our operating bank account, as you can imagine, because we still have to pay our normal operating costs. And the construction line of credit, the hope is that it will alleviate some of that financial strain. But even then, we're still going to have some increased monthly costs, payments, interest, things like that. And two, as a result, anytime there's debt in any form, right, there's risk, which makes consistent giving even more vital. So that's why I'm asking you today, everyone do your part. It's as simple as that. Everyone do your part. Everyone give. Everyone be faithful to your section of the wall. Because that's how we're going to rebuild this thing. Everyone be faithful to your section of the wall. I've always been confident that this building project will come to completion. I know it will. I'd just rather have it be completed so avoid some of the gray hairs that are creeping up in my beard here, okay? So we're gonna get it done, but I think it's time to charge ahead and do this. But we need everyone to be faithful if we're gonna do that. 2 Corinthians 8:8, it says, I say this not as a command, but to prove by the earnestness of others that your love is also genuine. So if you're currently giving to the mission of Reach Church, I want to thank you for your generosity. It's unbelievable. Thank you for being being faithful to your section of the wall. Thank you. But here's what I'm asking all of us to consider, okay? Just consider it. When we have a clearer understanding of the final numbers of the settlement and all the building costs, we're going to start a capital campaign to raise additional money, yes, on top of the insurance settlement, for the building and the property and content. For example, look, I mentioned it last week, but we want to address the parking lot and the curbs. That's not, the insurance isn't going to pay for that, but I don't want to have a nice brand new building and curbs falling apart with geese still laying, hanging out in the puddles in the parking lot, okay? So we got to address those things. I want to furnish the new building with quality equipment and nice furniture and good content. I want to finally put these ugly red chairs to their final rest. Goodbye. Want to upgrade exterior lighting and landscaping, things like that. So I want you all to just start praying about an amount to give towards a capital campaign like that. And that's coming, but this is what we need right now to charge ahead. I want to ask you, as I asked almost a year and a half ago, I want to ask you to consider increasing your monthly giving by $25 a week, $100 a month. If you can't afford to do that, I'm asking you to please consider increasing your monthly giving by something, okay? And if you're not currently giving, I really want to encourage you to give. You're a part of this. This isn't Tyler's rebuilding project. This is Reach Church's building. It's not about me. It's not even about a leadership team trying to figure this all out and get it done. This is about us. And won't it be special when we're all over there and we can say, look what God did through us, through all of us, being faithful to our section of the wall. So if you're not currently giving, I'm asking you to give. If you don't know where to start somewhere. Start with $25 a week. Just start somewhere. But it's important to our church that everyone do their part. Everyone consider, how am I going to do my part? Paul later writes this in 2 Corinthians chapter 9. Remember this, a farmer who plants only a few seeds will get a small crop, but the one who plants generously will get a generous crop. You must each decide in your heart how much to give. And don't give reluctantly or in response to pressure, for God loves a person who gives cheerfully. And God will generally provide all you need. Then you will always have everything you need and plenty left over to share with others. As the scriptures say, they share freely and give generously to the poor. Their good deeds will be remembered forever, for God is the one who provides seed for the farmer and then bread to eat. In the same way, he will provide and increase your resources and then produce a great harvest of generosity in you. So some laid beams, some set doors, some rebuilt, some repaired, but they all worked together to being faithful to their section of the wall. So everyone, I'm asking you this morning, everyone do your part. We want to get this construction line of credit. We want to charge full steam ahead on this rebuilding process. It's just time. It feels right. There's no other group of people on planet Earth that I would want to move over to the other building with than all of you. It just is the right time. But to do that, everyone has to do their part. Things just don't happen. There was a flood. God said, Noah, build an ark. And Noah just didn't sit around hoping that an ark would magically appear. He actually had to build it. And that's what this is going to take. Everyone do your part. Everyone do your part. And I want you to consider what that is. We're also at the end of the service going to have tables in the back for just some more information about how you can get involved in some of the ministries that we have going on. We always need more nursery volunteers. We always need more kids volunteers, tech volunteers, people on the worship team, connections, welcoming people, doing things like that. We always need more of that stuff. So if you want to get involved, go back, talk to somebody. They'll be back there waiting for you. But everyone do your part. That's the encouragement for today. Everyone do your part. See, the Israelites had that mindset as they set out to rebuild the wall. And sure enough, after overcoming relentless opposition and oppression and setbacks, they even ran into some financial issues in Nehemiah chapter 5, interesting chapter. But after all of that, the wall of Jerusalem was finally rebuilt. Look at Nehemiah 6. So the wall was finished on the 25th day of the month Elul in 52 days. And when all our enemies heard of it, all the nations around us were greatly afraid and fell greatly in their own esteem, for they perceived that this work had been accomplished with the help of our God. Isn't that good? And then in Nehemiah chapter 8, the ruins come to life. The ruins come to life. With the wall rebuilt and the city protected, the people come, they gather together, it says, as one man in the open square to hear the word of the Lord. And I want to read this story to you and just imagine what this was like. And all the people gathered as one man into the square before the water gate. And they told Ezra the scribe to bring the book of the law of Moses that the Lord had commanded Israel. So Ezra the priest brought the law before the assembly, both men and women and all who could understand what they heard on the first day of the 7th month. And he read from it facing the square before the water gate from early morning until midday. Maybe we should make our services like that last night. I'm just kidding. In the presence of the man and the women and those who could understand it. And the ears of all the people were attentive to the book of the law. And Ezra the scribe stood on a wooden platform that they had made for the purpose. And Ezra opened the book in the sight of all the people, for he was above all the people. And as he opened it, all the people stood. And Ezra blessed the Lord, their great God. And all the people answered, Amen, amen, lifting up their hands. And they bowed their heads and worshiped the Lord with their faces to the ground. This was the moment when the ruins came to life in this remarkable scene. It's the moment, and this moment had been years in the making after all of what they had been through. This was the moment. The law was being read again in Jerusalem with a rebuilt temple and a rebuilt wall. And here's what's unique about this story. It's read by a man named Ezra. Ezra. Now, Ezra had previously, before Nehemiah showed up to rebuild the wall, Ezra previously led a group of Israelites back to Jerusalem, and he was there for the rebuilding of the temple. So Ezra has been in Jerusalem during this whole time that Nehemiah is rebuilding the wall, but he's not mentioned in the first 7 chapters of the book of Nehemiah until this moment right here. But though the book of Nehemiah doesn't mention Ezra until chapter 8, Ezra had been in Jerusalem for 13 years before this moment. 13 years. And as the people assemble, they say, go get Ezra. Go get Ezra. They get Ezra to read the law. And this doesn't happen by accident. Somewhere in the background, for 13 years, Ezra had been doing those seemingly small, faithful acts, the faithful work that no one else saw. It wasn't glamorous, but person by person, Ezra was ministering to those people. And that's why when it came time for this moment, the moment they'd prayed for years and years, they say, go and get Ezra. We want Ezra to read the law again in this place. One commentator put it this way: faithfulness, no matter in what small corner it may be expressed, is of greater value than we ever imagined. What Ezra had been doing may not have been glamorous. His name did not appear in any official records. No one downloaded his sermons after he preached them. Sometimes God calls us to do his work in a corner and expects us to do it faithfully. God does have a plan and a purpose for all of us. And sometimes those things that he has prepared for you to walk in before the foundation of the world, by the way, but sometimes those things aren't all that glamorous. And we live in a society that chases glamour, that loves likes and influencers, TikTok nonsense and things like that. We love this stuff. But God doesn't always call us to the glamorous. Sometimes God calls us to just show up in the mundane, in the stuff that nobody else wants to do. And maybe just a little more every month. Whatever it is, sometimes God just calls us to that. And church, listen to me, that is how ruins come to life. That's how ruins come to life. It doesn't come in one dramatic moment or in one insurance settlement or one construction line of credit or one quick fix. Ruins come to life through years and years and years of unseen small acts of faithfulness. Ruins come to life when we're each faithful to our own section of the wall. I know, to bring this kind of home, we talked about this, our project, but I've always loved it because it speaks to our lives. And I know that there are things in your life, maybe it's a broken relationship, maybe it's an addiction, maybe it's, I don't know what it is. But there are always things in our life where we just so badly want things to come to life again. And we're always looking for maybe the quick fixes. And that's why we get disheartened and give up and walk away. God never calls us to that. It's always those simple, small acts of faithfulness that he uses to bring ruins to life. Sometimes nobody will ever hear about it, but God knows, and God sees. And that's all I care about. Showing up every day, walking in what you're called to do, being faithful to your section of the wall. That's how ruins come to life. Ruins come to life when we give in faith, when we give. Not someone else will give, when we give. Ruins come to life when we serve. Ruins come to life when we each do our part. Ruins come to life when we stop excusing ourselves. Someone else will take care of that. And instead we say, here am I, Lord. Send me. And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. Don't give up. No matter what it is in your life, don't give up. And when you're not giving up, don't grow weary in doing the good. I know it's hard. I know it's hard to show up sometimes. I know it's hard not being seen sometimes. I know it's hard. But don't give up. And don't grow weary of doing good. That's a promise of God, for in due time, in due season, we will reap if we do not give up. Don't give up. But let's be faithful to our own section of the wall and pray that God would have the ruins come to life.